Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today I am so pleased that we have a special guest, my friend and colleague, Dr. Meg Haworth. And she is a trailblazer who works with women survivors of abuse, particularly narcissistic abuse and sexual trauma, focusing on the connection between trauma and illness using holistic methods. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too. Yes. And I know the viewers also are probably pretty excited to hear some interesting new content on the topic. And I'm so curious, to hear more about just what got you into, the niche that you're in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I myself am a trauma survivor. As a child, I was sexually, physically, and emotionally abused. And so that led to illness in my 20s, and I had over a dozen illnesses. I was in and out of doctor's offices for that whole decade. And I had things like depression, of course. When you have that kind of trauma, you're going to be depressed. Typically anxiety was through the roof. And then I also had migraine headaches and chronic infections and irritable bowel syndrome and gastritis and endometriosis and muscle spasms in my neck and back from scoliosis and a ruptured disc in my neck. It was just like one thing after the next. And so I was sick all the time. I'd be in bed for weeks at a time, just on 9 different pharmaceutical drugs. And so it was a moment where I just decided to totally listen to my intuition. And that's the moment where everything changed for me. And then I started to listen to my intuition after that. I had this crazy intuition anyway, because I had also drowned as a child. So I had these traumas of drowning and everything, the fallout from all of that, plus a near-death experience. So I was highly intuitive. Just highly psychic as a child. I'd have dreams that came true, all kinds of things. I'd know things about people that they didn't have to tell me anything. I just knew it. And so that's been something this strange combination of things led me to holistic medicine, because it was first the chiropractor that I had the intuitive knowing I need to go see a chiropractor. And so I started going to see her, and then she opened me up to nutrition and meditation and yoga classes. And, and energy work, all these people just surrounded me the moment I took my healing into my own hands. And that's a primary thing I like to tell people to do. Like, if you're sick and when you have a traumatic history, to have that moment, take that moment and just go like, oh my gosh, if this is the moment where it's clicking with you, just do that one thing, just make a phone call. So it led to that. And then eventually I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, mixed connective tissue disease. And then I was struck by lightning in my late 40s. So I just like, so then there's brain injuries from that, and nervous system and back injuries. And so it's unbelievable when I think about what I've been through.
You can't make this stuff up, right? It's just
no, but it's so clear to me that my purpose in life has been overcoming these massive difficulties and then helping other people do the same. And most of the people who come to me are empathic and sensitive and have gone through similar things, and they know I get them in a way that, book learning isn't going to help the therapist, healer, nutritionist understand about them. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to the thing you said about like the moment you took that into your own hands. Like you said, that moment was a turning point. Can you elaborate on that? Because I feel like that's really important.
It is so important. I call it intuitive turning points, and I actually have a podcast on my YouTube channel for this. Where I talk to people like you who have that intuitive moment, and where this is so important to look back, because intuition is so often in hindsight. And you look back on your life and you go, oh, wow, that was a pivotal moment. That was the moment that I did something different towards my own healing to help support myself and help get better. And the moment particularly for me was I was reading the Washingtonian magazine. It was in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. And I was on an article on alternative medicine. And I was raised by a scientist mother and a defense contractor father in the Washington, D.C. area. So, I mean, I had very logical parents. We were religious. We went to church every Sunday. And, it was just, I was always taught to do everything logically. And that's what, I was going to Western medical doctors. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So I stepped outside of all of that when I listened to my intuition in that one moment of reading this magazine and going, alternative medicine, chiropractic care. I could barely hold this magazine up. I was in so much pain. And I had, like I said, I spent weeks in bed at a time. And so that wake up call moment, that changed my whole life. And all it was a phone call. My friend had been raving about her chiropractor. And I was like, okay, I'm going to call her and get her number. So thank you, Gail. To my friend Gail, who's still my friend. It's been almost 30 years later.
That's amazing because I think back to my own experience where I had kind of an amazingly similar experience to what you described. And when I was in the beginning stages of having all these chronic illnesses and things going wrong, and I was going to doctors, I had no idea that I had trauma. I mean, none. It wasn't even on my radar. If someone had come to me and said, you have trauma, I probably would have not listened to them. I would not have known. But I wonder, is there, because people that are listening that are out there that might be thinking, wow, I have, a lot of chronic things going on, and maybe they're relating to this. And is there something you can tell them, like something really tangible that they can have right now in this moment that could help them?
Yeah, there is an emotional root cause to everything that goes on in your body. I mean, if you think about the way that we do everything in life, everything starts with a thought before we create the thing. Like if you want to build a building, you're going to think about building the building, and then you're going to draw out the plans and all of that. The same thing happens in our bodies. Our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our experiences, they can drain our bodies and drain our energy which eventually drains the biology and makes us sick. And so really a lot of what I do is help people to restore that energy, to release the stuck energy that gets stuck in the body. So it's like a somatic psychotherapeutic kind of technique that I use to help them release that energy. And there's so much science to back this up now with
Oh yeah, way more than in the 60s, right? I remember that.
Adverse childhood experiences study, just what happens to you as a child can drain you to the point that you get sick as an adult. We know all of this now. And finding the thing that resonates with you, the work that I do is very unique. I work a lot with very highly sensitive, empathic women who are very successful, and I've worked with doctors and therapists and coaches and healers and all kinds of CEOs, all kinds of people from different walks of life who went through these traumatic experiences. And now they're putting the pieces together like, oh, that might have something to do with my cancer. That might have something to do with my autoimmune disease. Big one. Fibromyalgia and sexual abuse they're super connected. They're finding this more and more in the studies that they're doing around that.
Yeah. Wow. And what you say about like that, there is a way, there is a way that's not the way that we're taught. And I'm thinking about how a lot of times we have to give ourselves permission to actually explore different paths. Because like if you're raised in an environment where it's like it's logical and this is what we do, and you're given these belief systems, and we're not thinking outside that. And in order to think outside those boxes, we have to kind of be the breakout person. We have to be willing to maybe be judged or criticized by others. And that's
Yes,
for trauma survivors, that's hard too, is the thought of being
that's,
judged and criticized.
oh my God. And especially for those of us that are survivors of narcissistic abuse from parents, that's really hard, because if you're constantly being criticized and your self-worth is, to nothing. I mean, I've talked to an author just yesterday who is having a really hard time with putting her work out into the world. And I know this myself, from having grown up with narcissistic abuse, is that, even though you've achieved all of this and you've done so much, the fear of criticism on the back end of what you're putting out into the world, your baby that you love and you created, and you're doing something different, and it's, maybe woo-woo or out there, or, oh my gosh, that was one of the hardest things that's one of the hardest hurdles to jump. Yeah, for sure. And it still continues to be, I still think about, like, okay, how's this going to be received? And then,
Yeah,
a
it's
negative
always
comment comes up.
progress.
Yeah, a negative comment comes up on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, and I'm like, okay, but you can create things inside of yourself, and such a strong sense of self and self-confidence and self-kindness and self-compassion that you can get through anything.
Right,
You
right.
you went through the worst already,
Yeah, like you're here
yeah.
despite that. Like you succeeded despite all those things you went through, and you're still functional. You're functioning, you're creating, you're helping others, right? Like that's, to me, I tell my clients and people in my audience, like, you're my biggest hero, because you're still here and you're still like giving and caring and making a difference, and that to me that's huge. Yeah. But I think
Huge.
it's time for us to actually not just, be like at the level of functioning success that we're at, but really go beyond that, like way beyond that, into our full potential. And
Yes.
something you said, I don't want to forget, because you said so many things, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to ask her about that. You mentioned women who are empathic and sensitive, and I wonder, because that term gets thrown around a lot, but I'm wondering, what does empathic and sensitive mean to you? Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, I mean, empaths are people who are highly empathetic, so they feel very deeply, and often empaths will feel other people's emotions. Many of us went through abuse as a child, and so we had to get attuned to the energies that are coming at us, because the other shoe was always going to drop. So what we do, and what most empaths do, is they attune to guilt and shame and fear and these emotions, these negative emotions that are swirling around them, that are coming at them. So they're absorbing it from their abuser and also activating it in themselves. But your empathy is also, and I think more powerfully used, for compassion, for care, for kindness, for self-trust, for trust of others, trusting life, and learning all of those things to raise your self-esteem, your confidence, your value, all of those things. But we're not taught to use our empathy for that. I mean, although we do, because we feel, our empath will feel, the pain of the world, but we can also feel the beauty of the world. And that's what I help empaths reconnect with, that part of the self, because that's where your intuition is. Empaths are also intuitive. They tend to be more kind and caring, and really feel more deeply. And that's part of that sensitivity too. And we tend to also be allergic to things, sensitive to food, sensitive to drugs, sensitive to toxins in the environment and our makeup and body products and all kinds of things, which is a big part of what I help people with as well. Since I'm also a nutritional chef, I was a holistic chef private chef for celebrities for many years in Hollywood. And so that's a big part of what I weave into the work that I do.
Yes,
So,
yes. Wonderful. That's a great segue, because I wanted to ask you also about that. Like, what's this unique thing that you're bringing, into your healing modalities?
Yeah. So I do bring the nutrition piece and cooking, and also diets for specific health conditions. So there are specific diets that will help support you and heal you if you have fibromyalgia, if you have autoimmune disease, if you have cancer. And I'm really well versed in those diets and also teaching you how to eat those things, eat those diets in a way that tastes good and that you can enjoy. Because that's really important with food, is that enjoyment piece, because that feeds the soul along with feeding the body. But the other thing that really sets me apart is I created a modality called whole person integration technique, and it helps to get to the emotional root cause of illness and how you're holding that in your physical body. So it's a holistic technique that helps the person to see a whole snapshot all at once of the mental, emotional, physical, and energetic/spiritual issues that are connected to this emotional experience. Because at the time of impact of an emotionally abusive or physically or sexually abusive experience or series of them, there are emotions that get stirred up and that you spin in, and then you create your emotional patterns from this. But then also these beliefs really get embedded in you. Like if you have a narcissistic parent, the belief that I'm not good enough, I can't do anything right, I never get it right, why bother trying? All of those beliefs are really run in the people who've been through this. So helping to get to those core negative beliefs or I'm unlovable, and helping them to release that from the system. That's what whole person integration technique does, but they release and then replace, because then I help guide them towards the best parts of you, your path, your purpose, your meaning, your kindness, your compassion, your caring, self-trust, your intuition, and getting in touch with that and developing that part of the self that you got completely disconnected from it when you went through these abusive experiences.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I love listening to you talk about what you do in your language. It's very familiar to me in the modalities I use, but I love that yours is a little bit different language. And I love how all these modalities, they interconnect, they're connected, and they just have their own unique kind of vibration. So
Yeah.
I love hearing that. Yeah. Because, we form those core beliefs, when we're children, and they just follow us through life until we become aware of them. And yeah, they set us up for these patterns, and the illnesses and all these things. And so it makes so much sense that we have to address the whole, like you said, it's the whole thing, because it's all connected. And if somebody that's watching this, that knows they've had narcissistic trauma, and then also may have some kind of chronic illness, if they can stop and say, wait a minute, maybe this is a pathway of healing for me by addressing this illness and feeding myself, finding out to feed myself and therefore heal. I think that's a beautiful pathway. I really do.
I do too. I love that you put it that way, that it's a pathway to healing. I think all trauma is a pathway to healing. And that the longer we sit in the trauma, the harder it becomes for us. I mean, I have people that will come to me in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I've had people come to me at all different times of life. It's never too late to address it. It's never too late to release it. And it's never too late to heal. And the longer you sit with it, the harder it does become, because it just keeps gaining energy and force and momentum. And then you just keep seeing it being played and replayed in your reality. And the work that I do helps people to really shift their reality and change the way that they're viewing themselves and the world around them. And then it changes their lives, because of that, and their bodies. It helps them heal, because it's all connected, like you said. It's all connected.
We're living in this body, and we need it to work, right? We can't engage with the world and do the work we're meant to do if we can't feel good in our bodies and be able to use the body as a vehicle. So that's one of the most, it's a really important pillar of healing, I believe. Yeah. Can I ask you, how can somebody work with you? Like, what are some different ways they can work with you if they were interested?
So I offer a couple of different things. First of all, I have books. So you can go to my website at meghaworth.com and Get Well Now, Healing Yourself with Food and the Power of the Mind is my best-selling book. Came out a few years ago. I'm writing another one, another two, actually. I have a degree in writing and I can't help it. At any rate, so you can also book a free consultation with me at my website. If any of this resonates with you and you feel like you just want to have a discussion about this, you think you might want to work with somebody like me, I'm happy to talk to you. And if I can't help you or if we're not a good fit, I have a huge network of people just like you to help to refer you to. So you can work with me one-on-one. I work with people all over the world. And I also have an online course and program for coaches, therapists, healers, and entrepreneurs called Evolving Intuition, Building Self-Trust for Life. And that's to help empathic and sensitive coaches, therapists, and healers to develop their intuition, to heal their empathy overload, because that's something that's very real for those of us who work with others' emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And with their healing, is that you can kind of take on, if you're an empath and sensitive, you can really kind of take on some of the things that happen in session. And so developing your intuition is actually the antidote for that. So I help people with a very specific method, and then they get certified in whole person integration technique, so they can remove their own blocks to their intuitive insight. And then they can also help their clients too.
Awesome. Yeah. Certification. For all you certification junkies out there, definitely
Yeah.
right. It's beautiful to have so many ways, to learn from people like you that are experts and masters in your field, and then be able to go out and then work with others. And so it's like that ripple effect, so that's a beautiful program that you've created. Do you have a Facebook group too? You have a Facebook group as well.
I do. It's the Intuitive Practitioners Network.
Okay.
And so you can just put that into the search in Facebook.
I have all the links down
You put the links below. Yeah, absolutely. And the network is for intuitive practitioners. So if you're a health practitioner and you're kind of hiding out in your intuitive because you can't really share it, come on over. We can talk about that stuff there. You're sensitive and empathic. We could talk about that there. We talk about how our intuition plays out in our practices. And we have live networking at this point once a month. We're doing live networking groups to get to know each other and to help each other and support each other as colleagues who are intuitive, sensitive, empathic, and helping others grow and expand their lives.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, because it's so important that we are able to get that connection with one another, because, being isolated and alone in your own pain and what's happened to you is so, it's like I say, it's one of the worst things. Like, you're just stewing in that all by yourself. You have nothing external to get validation from or to get a different perspective on. But when you can go into a group of other people that have experienced similar things, and you can get validation and just know I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's been through this. That's hugely healing.
Yes, it really is. Yeah. No matter what level of life you're at, whether you're just beginning and just going into your healing journeys, finding that support.
Yeah.
And then as we continue on, become the healer and help others.
Yeah, so definitely everybody check out just if not anything else, just jump in that Facebook group, and connect and check out all of Dr. Meg Haworth's other links. Check out her website, and she has some great content on her website too, some blogs and things like that you can check out. So wonderful. So I just for respect for time, I know we're wrapping up here. Is there anything else before we go that you wanted to say to the audience, something you want to leave them with?
I would say that your holistic healing is the most important thing that you can do, and really taking your healing into your own hands and caring for yourself as deeply as you possibly can. to help yourself heal is, I think, what it is. And then listening to your intuition, learning to listen to your intuitive voice and allowing that to guide you more. The most important thing is you can do.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. So we will see you next time, and everyone take care.